So I'm sure you've all been watching the European Championships and you've been enjoying watching 24 of Europe's best footballing nations compete against each other. One thing that has really struck me though is just how small some of the populations of the teams competing really are. Hungary and Sweden have around 10 million people, Finland and Slovakia only around 5 million people, but the one that has really got me is Wales. Wales do so well despite having a population of, according to Google, only about 3 million people. That means when it comes to selecting a team for international football, they've got a really small pool of players to choose from, particularly as well when rugby is probably the more popular sport in Wales. And on top of that, without trying to offend any Welsh football fans out there, the domestic league is pretty terrible. It's not a great league. I mean, when you've got a university team as one of the best teams in the league, it can't be that great. So today I am going to change all of that. In today's video, we are giving the Welsh Premier League a £1.2 billion TV deal, which is monumental. All 12 teams competing are going to get £100 million every single season in broadcast rights. So the TV companies have come in and they've said, right, to have the rights to broadcast your games, we're going to give you £100 million every single season. Let's be honest, it doesn't get much better than that. Well, actually, it probably can get a bit better than that. It can get better if you drop a like on today's video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here and want to see some more Football Manager content from me. And of course, leave a comment down below for the YouTube algorithm. Hopefully, what we're going to see today is the Welsh Premier League skyrocketing up the European rankings and hopefully begin to challenge the traditional top 5 leagues of Europe. I'm also really hoping that the money going into the clubs is going to allow the clubs to massively develop their youth systems, their training facilities, and hopefully what it's going to mean is better quality players coming through into the Welsh footballing system. And hopefully one day, Wales will actually go on to win a European Championships. As you can see, I've gone 70 years in the future from all of these save files at 5-year intervals. We're not going to look at every single save file because that will take far too long. We'll jump into the future at different increments. But if you are interested and you want to get access to all of these save files to have a good look around, as per usual, they're all going to be available for download from the Patreon. Oh, and I've just started a new podcast for Patreon and Twitch subscribers. The first episode literally came out today and I've made it free to everyone to listen to. So if you've got a spare 25 minutes and you want to hear me talk about the channel and a bit of personal stuff as well, there's a link in the description to take you to the Patreon page to listen to the podcast for free. So we're going to kick things off right at the very start of the game. It's September 2020. I've not simulated anything so far, but we want to grasp where we are currently. So right now, the Welsh Premier League is the 107th most reputable league in all of Europe. This table is all based on reputation, and right now it's below the Belgian second amateur division, which is pretty rubbish. In the European coefficient rankings, which determines how many places you get for the Champions League, Europa League, etc., Wales is currently 47th out of 55, so it can't really get much worse than that. What it means is they get 1 Champions League first qualifying round place and 3 places in the first qualifying round of the Europa Conference League. And then as a national team, well actually they do pretty well already. They're 21st in the world rankings right now, but hopefully we're going to try and see them get inside the top 10 or something like that. So we've jumped actually quite far into the future for this first sort of interval. We're now in 2042, which is 22 years into the future. I thought we'd actually go fairly far into the future to start off with on the grounds that for the first 10-15 years, I doubt much is going to change as the clubs settle into everything, start developing their systems, and hopefully by now we'll see some good progress. And when I say let's see some good progress, we have seen a lot of progress in these 22 years. The Welsh Premier League has gone from, 107th all the way up to 30th, which is very impressive. So some rapid growth there. As you can see, they were down in 38th a few years ago, 39th the season before that. So they've really risen up quickly to 30th, but have stayed there for 3 years. If we look at the past winners, you can see it's been absolutely dominated by Connah's Quay, which I think I'm saying correctly. The Welsh language is pretty complicated, so forgive me for inevitably pronouncing some things wrong at some point. But TNS also getting a couple of league title wins in there as well. Bala picking one up in 2021, 2022. I know for sure I'm going to say this one wrong. Cefn Druids. I feel like I'm saying that one all wrong because the Welsh language is so complicated. They've come runners up a couple of times and third a couple of times as well. But I'm surprised at how quickly it's jumped up to 30th. What we can see, though, is that it looks like only 3 teams are qualifying for European football still. I presume a 4th team will qualify from winning the Welsh Cup as well. So still looks like only 4 qualifying places. A quick look at the nation coefficients. You can see that Wales has risen to 20th in the nation coefficients. And they've got a slightly bigger score than the Czech Republic. So they'll go up to 19th for next season, I believe. What that means in terms of qualification places is that Wales are still only getting 1 Champions League place and 3 Europa Conference League places, albeit the Conference League places are now in the 2nd qualifying round. It's not until you get into the top 15 that you actually start to get more places, and that's where you can really start climbing up the coefficient rankings. So hopefully we'll see them get into the top 15 very soon. As for the national team, it's not looking that good actually. They're 27th right now. They had a high of 26 just here. But you can see from this line that they're 36th, 38th. They were briefly 30th. They've dropped down a bit. Although the senior squad does look like a lot better. Like, we're looking at a higher average current ability of the players here than it was in, when we started off the save file. There are only 2 players, I think, above. In fact, no, it was just Aaron Ramsey above 150 current ability. Bale was 148. There's now 3 players there with more than 150 current ability and quite a few with more than 140. If we sort it by potential ability, there's not many players in this team that are going to get any better because they're all pretty old now. If we look at the under-21 squad, and if I just sort this out again with the experiment view, you can see here there's actually some good young players here with really high potential. There's 4 players here with over 170 potential, so a bit of a golden generation coming through. Fingers crossed that does some good. I'm very interested to see how Connah's Quay have been getting on in Champions League football and all European football basically, and by looks of things, they've never got to the group stages of the Champions League. But in 2041-42, they lost to Club Brugge in the European Champions League Champions Playoff, which is the final qualifying round before you get to the group stage of the Champions League. So if they'd just beaten Club Brugge, they would have got through to the Champions League group stage. The same actually here against Shakhtar Donetsk in 37-38. So they are so close to getting through to the Champions League group stage. Speaking of the Champions League, in real life, Connah's Quay are playing in the Champions League, and you can follow their progress in the One Football app, the sponsors of today's video. The One Football app is the best app out there to keep up to date with all of the latest footballing news, scores, and updates from around the world and your favourite teams and leagues. You can get live push notifications sent straight through to your phone for all the games that matter to you, as well as following along to your favourite competitions such as the Champions League qualifying to see just how Connah's Quay get on. So if you want to download the app for absolutely free from the top line of the description, it would massively help me and the channel out. In terms of the Europa League, they've made the group stages quite a few times and actually even made the first knockout round in the season that's just gone on against, they lost to Inter Milan unfortunately, but to get through to the group stages and then to the knockout rounds is pretty mental. And then they have also been in the Europa Conference League quite a few times, as you can see, dropping down through the various qualifying rounds. And they've made the group stage here a couple of times. They made the first knockout round as well. They lost to Akhmat in the first knockout round. Of all teams to lose to, Akhmat from Russia. They should have won that one and got through to the second knockout round. But I'm pretty impressed with what I've seen from these guys already. So I've gone and jumped another 20 years into the future. It's now 2062, it's season 42, and hopefully we're going to see some huge progress in the league. And as you can see, the league is now 11th, ranked 11th based on reputation. Surprisingly, Austria and Bulgaria are right up there as well. I'm surprised that, Bulgaria, that's impressive. For some reason, Bulgaria always seem to do well in Football Manager. I think we need to do an experiment with them at some point because in various experiments now, we have always seen Bulgaria absolutely smash it out of the park. As we can see though from the past winners, Connah's Quay have just absolutely dominated the league. They just are the best team in Wales by a long, long way. TNS have dropped off massively. Cefn Druids seem to be the second best team as it stands right now. So we'll check on these guys later on. In terms of the coefficient rankings as well, Wales are currently 10th in coefficient rankings. So that means they are getting some really good European places now. Scotland, though, find themselves in 7th. That is really interesting. So well done, Scotland. Scotland, in this experiment, doing phenomenally well, and actually have got a bigger coefficient score than Portugal, so we'll go into 6th for next season and slowly start to chase down the French. So Scotland are doing absolute madness. But in terms of actual qualification places, Wales gets 1 place in the group stage of the Champions League and 1 place in the final qualifying round. They get 1 final qualifying round place for the Europa League and then 2 slots in the Europa Conference League. So what's that? 1, 2, 3, 5 qualifying spots, which is pretty decent. The national team has improved to 20th in world rankings, reaching a height of 15th, as you can see here. So they're getting better and better. So the idea that facilities were going to improve and they get a better national team as a result is looking pretty good right now. If we look at the senior squad, you can see, if we sort it by current ability first, actually it doesn't look all that much better than it was before. The best player here, Kai Husson of Real Madrid, is an absolute fantastic world-class player. But actually the rest of the national team doesn't look to be that much better, if I'm honest with you. Again, let's look at the under-21 team, and if you look at potential ability, there's not a whole lot of talent coming through. So there could be a bit of a dry spell at the moment maybe my prediction was wrong, maybe, I don't know. If we look at the facilities of all of the teams, we can see that Aberystwyth have great training and new facilities. Bala apparently have, what do they have? Is it going to tell me at all anything? They've got excellent and superb, which is interesting. Barry have got good and good. Cardiff have great and good. Cefn Druids must have really good facilities. They have got superb and great. So we're seeing some pretty decent facilities, but they're not actually the best ones. Also, big fan of this. The current balance for Cefn Druids is £820 million in their bank account. You love to see it. I am pretty interested in this Connors Key team, though. We've seen them dominate the league. The best player they've got is 149 current ability. It's called Oscar from Brazil. Unfortunately, it's not going to be that Oscar because it's 2062. But I am very surprised that actually all their best players are not Welsh. All their worst players are Welsh, as you can see. So either they're not developing the Welsh players, it's the Premier League teams that are maybe developing the Welsh players over in England. They've just been bringing them over because they've got high reputation to bring in Welsh players, or they sell all their best players to then buy in foreign talent by looks of things. That's interesting. What's the makeup of all of the other teams in the league? Well, Real have got, or Ryle, I think they're pronounced maybe, they're all Welsh pretty much, but they're not very good. This team that I'm not going to try and pronounce are all Welsh. Newtown are pretty much all Welsh with a few foreign players in there as well. Pennybont, for the most part, are Welsh or Irish. The New Saints are pretty much all Welsh, actually. There's obviously some few foreign players in there as well, but the vast majority of the team is Welsh, as with Aberystwyth, as with Bala, as with Barry, as with Carnarvon, as with Cefn Druids, actually. They're also a lot of English players in there. There's probably more foreign players than Welsh players in there, I would say. So weirdly, the two best teams are actually bringing in lots of foreign talent. I didn't quite expect that. I don't know what I expected really, but I didn't expect that to be the case. Either way, we're going to go forward one more time to, if we can find it, 70 seasons in, which must be 2090. So here we are in 2090, the end of the simulations that I did, and, well, hopefully we're going to see some big progress. Here we go then. So, at the end of this experiment, the Welsh Premier League is the 7th most reputable league in all of Europe. It's just actually dropped back down from 6th. So at one point it was ahead of France, but Scotland, how is Scotland doing so? We haven't given any money to Scotland. And yet Scotland's right. This is so interesting. Competition ranking. So England is still number 1. Italy and Spain are up in 2nd and 3rd. Germany in 4th. But Scotland have apparently got a better reputation of a league than France, which is interesting. And then we get to Wales. Portugal's still in 8th. That's kind of reasonable. But Israel up in 9th. How's the Israeli got so popular? I don't know. The Dutch league in 10th. Austria and Bulgaria have dropped to 11th and 12th. I think they were a bit higher up last time around. Russia's dropped down massively. Switzerland has gone up quite a bit. The Turkish Super League has really dropped massively. So in terms of actual pure reputation, it's mental how much this has changed. Reputation is one thing though, coefficient points is something completely different, and Wales are still 7th in coefficient points, but it's Scotland that are pulling everything. Scotland are 4th in coefficient rankings. Right, Scotland. I mean, Scotland have won a World Cup. We've not even been trying to do anything with Scotland, and yet they've gone to win on the 2066 World Cup. How on earth? And like, how many, like, Celtic must have won some Champions Leagues along the way. Only one still. They won a Europa League in 2087. Is it Rangers then? Are Rangers doing it all? Rangers history, they've gone on to win a European Cup in 2078. No Champions Leagues. They must have got to some finals or something, surely. We'll look at that sort of stuff in a minute, but Scotland have, like, blown me away there massively. Wales are currently 7th, though. It's Wales meant to be talking about. They're 7th in club coefficient rankings, which in terms of qualification places means they get 2 Champions League places, 1 Europa League place, and 2 Europa League places. So actually not an improvement from last time in terms of number of places they get. If they get into 6th place ahead of Portugal, they'll get a lot more places. The national team then, how have the national team done? Well, they're 13th in the world. Oh, this is pretty decent. 13th in the world. The national team is looking pretty tasty. There's pretty decent players in there. No one as good as the guy from Real Madrid last time, but Marcus Brooks currently the best player in there, which is decent. And if we look at the under-21s and sort it by potential ability, there's a few decent players coming through, but no one hugely special, unfortunately, for Wales. Let's look at the history then. Have they won anything? This is the whole point. We wanted to see if they could win something, and they have won a European Championships in 2084. So 6 years ago, they won the European Championships. Let's look at the past winners of the European Championships. Hosted by Russia in 2084, Wales beat Portugal in the final. If you're an England fan like me, this is also pretty decent. We've won 4 of them over the past 70 years, which is pretty decent. Portugal winning quite a few. Bulgaria out of nowhere always win something. I don't get how they always do so well, but congratulations Bulgaria, and also Scotland becoming runners-up. But of course, Scotland have got a World Cup to their name. How on earth has this happened? Israel have just won 2 World Cups in a row. Right, so this answers the question as to how this... I'm speechless. This answers the question as to how the Israeli league is so reputable and popular. It's because they've just won 2 World Cups in a row in 2086 and 2090, beating England and France in the finals. Amazing. I can't see Wales getting runners-up or 3rd place on here anywhere. Obviously, Scotland beat South Korea in one final, and hosted by England in 2066. Scotland win the World Cup on the 100-year anniversary. Scotland fans must love that one, and South Korea fans must be pretty happy that they also won a World Cup in 2058. So did Bulgaria beat Scotland in a final as well. How did Bulgaria do it? How does South Korea and... this is blowing my mind, this. This is absolutely mental. You've come here for Wales, but you're sticking around for the Israeli and Bulgaria dominance that seems to have happened over the course of this 70-year stint. This is phenomenal. I love this. This is absolutely fantastic. What a moment, right? Israel have been really good for a long time as well. I've just noticed they came 3rd in 2078. So they've had like 12 years of dominance, essentially. I love this. This is absolutely fantastic. The best thing about this is the only league I've got loaded up is the Welsh League. So this is all just going mental on its own. It's not like I've got the Israeli or Scotland leagues loaded up, which would actually help them develop better. Because if you've got leagues loaded up, they usually develop better because they're actually playing actual games and stuff like that. The only league I've got loaded up, I can show you, the only league I've got loaded up is the Welsh League, as you can see here. The only one I've got loaded up, and yet Israel and Scotland are doing better. So maybe the real key thing is, don't give leagues £1.2 billion TV deals. Just let them be, and Israel will do it. It's a shame that Israel didn't beat Scotland in a final, because I know that would really rile up some Scotland fans. Also, we need to look at the Champions League winners and, of course, all the other European Cup competitions. And looking down this list, well, sadly, I can see plenty of Barcelona's, Man United's, Real Madrid's, PSG's. I can't see any Welsh teams. Or Scottish teams for that matter, which makes it even more mental how Scotland have done so well in terms of European coefficient rank. No, you hate to see it, just not quite good enough to get some teams winning this. Maybe the Europa League will be different as, well, I can see plenty of Israeli teams up there. Maccabi are in there. Celtic have won it as well. But I'm not seeing wins for any Scottish teams. I'm not seeing... O'Connor's Keys came runners-up in 85-86, so that's very unfortunate for them at Hampden Park, losing to Inter Milan. But looking down the rest of this, I I can't see any winners or runners-up from Wales, unfortunately, which is a bit disappointing. If we drop down into the Conference League, surely we must see some Welsh winners here. And TNS won the Europa Conference League in 2071-72, which is fantastic. But that might be the only final appearance we see from a Welsh team. I mean, Shamrock Rovers got to a final one year, losing to Valencia there from Ireland. Bala won it in 66-67, so congrats to Bala there as well. But I'm not seeing any more. I'm looking intently, and I can't see any more Welsh sides getting to finals. So maybe just those two winners of the Europa Conference League, I should say. Which is a bit of a shame, actually. Dundee United runners-up in 88-89, so congrats to them. But I guess it's just not gone quite to plan. I guess sometimes money doesn't matter at all. And sometimes you just need to have an Israel and a Scotland, and they just do well. Or Bulgaria. Bulgaria do well. Levski, they're Bulgarian, aren't they? They've won a Europa Conference League recently. Up the Bulgaria. So I think we're going to draw an end to today's experiment here. It's been a really interesting one, more because of the other teams and nations, not so much the Welsh stuff. They've gone up and they've done well, maybe not quite as well as you'd expect. But it's Israel and Scotland. They're the real ones that have just blown my mind. I can't believe how well, and Bulgaria too, and South Korea. How have those four teams done better than Wales when we are literally pumping billions and billions and billions into it? I mean, over 70 billion. In fact, over 100 billion, because it's 1.2 billion, isn't it? So over 100 billion over these 70 seasons. And apparently that's not enough. I can't believe it. So if you found today's episode as mental as I have, make sure you do drop a like on today's video and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. And I will see you next time. Have a great day. See you soon. Goodbye.